Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I am Travis Bruce, and today I have an amazing guest with us. He has been, and let's see, he is iconic when it comes to horror movies. He has been, he's a stunt actor. I mean, listen, what have you not been in? I mean, The People Under the Stairs, Freddy's Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4,
And
which
six.
3 is and 6, Freddy's Dead. And part 3 is my favorite. Part 3, I is yes up there with the original. I mean, the Lost Boys, the Monster Squad, Return of the Living Dead 2. I mean, listen, I'm bragging enough about them.
No,
Everybody,
you
yes.
don't talk about me. Let me talk about me.
I have my man William R. Perry. William, welcome to the Horror Room.
What's up, peoples? What's going on?
So listen, I mean, how did you? I mean, how did you? I mean, I just named all these iconic horror movies. How did you get started in the stunt acting?
It was funny. I wanted to be an actor most of my life. I was just dead set on being in movies. I'm a pretty decent actor, did a lot of theater, went to college, did all that stuff. And then I started getting agents, and the agents are like, "You're just too short. You're 5'6", 125 pounds. I got a 13-year-old girl that size." And so they would tell me that, wasn't where I was, had some great auditions for some great shows, but it just never seemed to be getting any steam. And about that time, a buddy of mine, a guy named Lee Waddell, who was the original Ghostface from Scream, we grew up together. And he said, "Look, man, I'm doing stunts these days." And a buddy of mine, a guy named Tony Caesar, who coordinated the original Nightmare on Elm Street, said, "Hey, I've got this kid that's in this show. It's for Disney, and this director, Wes Craven, you might have heard of him. He's doing this Disney TV show. Like, isn't that the guy that did all the horror movies?" He said, "Yeah, but he does a lot of TV too." And okay. I said, "What am I supposed to do?" He says, "You're just a passenger in a car." I'm not driving? And he said, no, you're just passenger. I said, "Why am I in there at all?" He said, "Well, it's a kid, and you look just like him, and you're about the same height and weight. And we don't want to put the kids in the car in case something bad happens. So you're just basically a crash test dummy without the crash." And I was like, "Okay, I get my union card?" He goes, "Yeah, you get your union card." I'm in. And so I was talking to Tony, and he said, "Gosh, there's a lot of work for a little guy like you, because there's a lot of movies being made, a lot of horror movies, particularly at the time, and they need stunt people, but all the other stunt guys are ex-gymnasts, so they're really thick, big muscular guys, but in this 5 foot tall." And I was like, "Well, I don't have that. That's for sure. I mean, they never got bigger than this." And so he said, "Yeah. So do you do any action stuff?" And I said, "Well, I'm a motorcycle rider, brown belt in karate, skateboards, And he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's great." Because all that stuff is stuff that kids do. There's fight scenes, there's falling off of bicycles, falling off, things. And he said, yeah. And so whenever she brought me in on the show, it was a piece of cake. It was, silly. But then other stuff started coming up. And in the 80s, you couldn't make a movie without cutting a teenager in half. So they would call me. And Nightmare on Elm Street were, of course, really, really, popular. And Nightmare 3 happened, Nightmare 4 happened, Nightmare 6 happened. And there was just so many movies where, teens or girls, I doubled some girls here and there. There's a TV show called Bates Motel.
Great show.
What is her name? The girl that was in Point Break with Keanu Reeves. Can't think of her name. Yeah, but I was a good double for her, actually. It's really funny. Her mom saw me at lunch, and she didn't realize. Lori Petty, that was her name. Her mama comes up behind me. "Lori?" "Yeah, Bob." And he says, "My God, you look like her." I'm like, "Yeah, a little makeup, a little shave, a little clearing out of the chest hair. I make a pretty decent double." And it was just, I had short hair. She had short hair, and nobody wanted to cut their hair. None of the women wanted to cut their hair to be your double. So I had the same hairstyle, sort of.
Wow. Okay.
And so, yeah, it's just all kind of luck, but, being connected with the right people. And so, I did that for about 12 years, working pretty steady, which was really rare. Nobody really works that steady out here. And it was just kind of one of those things. Anybody'd ask me to do something, I'm in, I'm game, let's do it. You
Yeah.
know, young and invincible, you can't kill me. And it was really fun. You know, I had a lot of fun, met some great people, did lots of great movies, and a lot of crap, but a lot of great movies too.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of lucked into things, and then had the right abilities, which was really fortunate as well. And then as we did movies, I had to learn new stuff. How do you do a Firebird? How do you get hit by a car? How do you do all these different things? What do I need to know if I go through a window? And I got thrown out of a lot of windows. I think about it later. I was kind of going through my resume. I'm like, I never left a room by the door. Why did I? I left buses through the window. I left doors. Just open a door. People throw me out. I get thrown out of a lot of places. You don't have to put me through the window.
But it's such a dangerous job. I mean, I can imagine it's a fun job because you've been on sets with Robin Williams and Hook and big name actors and actors, legendary, and even filmmakers like Wes Craven.
Yeah,
so I can imagine it's so fun.
Yeah, I was going to say I worked for Wes actually after the movies were all done for me, and I was his web developer because that was something I was moving into at the time when I decided that making movies was too much of a beating for a 38-year-old man. So so I worked with him for a while too, just as a friend almost. So it was kind of cool. I got just really again lucking into so many things.
Oh. But it's such a dangerous. It's such a dangerous fucking career. It's such a dangerous career, and I feel like you also don't get the credit. You know what I mean? I feel like stuntmen and women do not get the credit that they deserve as well.
They're starting to. It was kind of a weak example, but in the Oscars this year, they did a little feature on stunt people, which was sort of lip service because people have been complaining for a long time. Since I started saying stunt people should be eligible for Academy Awards, just like they have awards for all sorts of different things, technical stuff. And we're in the movies a lot of times when you see an iconic scene from a movie that's really really mind-blowing, it's often a stunt person. But the credit for it's interesting because I've just started doing conventions in the last year, and when people come up to me, they're like, "What have you done?" Kind of like, "Why are you even here?" And then I have the banners that they put up, and they're like, "Wait a minute, you've been in all of those?" It's like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Holy crap, dude, you're in every movie that I love," and it's like, yeah, that's why I'm here. And we tell stories and we hang out, and I can give them little tidbits of information they wouldn't know about the making of the film they're so into. And so now people are like, well, dude, what stunts? And then you kind of walk them through their stunts from the movies that they liked, and they're like, oh my god, I didn't know that was you. It's like, yeah, it's not, you're not supposed to know it's me. If you can tell that it's me, somebody screwed up, because I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to be a good double for the actor, but here and there I did get some acting roles. People Under the Stairs I got to do a little bit more, and then Predator 2. There's a scene in the subway where me and my gang get slaughtered with a lot of metro passengers, and there I actually got to speak and get to be me and see my face up there 60 feet across. So you get it here and there, but it is that I didn't get into a lot of situations where I really thought I was going to buy it. Some broken nose and broken rib, little stuff, to a stunt person. But most of the time, if you're not supposed to get hurt, you're supposed to look like you got hurt. And so that's really the trick, is to be able to set it up well enough that it looks really deadly and painful, but you have to be, you got to be able to do it more than once, because what if the shot didn't come out right? What if somebody blew a line? What if something, a lighting thing was wrong, or you can see a camera or something like that? You have to do it again. And so you really have to be able to sell it. And most times, some stunt guys do some stuff that really could kill you, but the day-to-day stuff, it's stuff where if you were a football player and you came home with the bruises and stuff that would do, people would say, well, what are you complaining about? That's what football is. And that's the same way with stunts. It's like, yeah, you can hardly complain. If the actor could do it, he would. they want you in there in case something goes wrong, and maybe this is a little more, you need to be a little more agile. You need to be a little more, just durable than the actor can be. Because if an actor even gets a cut on his face or anything, they can't shoot until that's healed, or at least they can disguise it. So if there's any glass involved, you're never going to see the real actor in there, just because it's something silly that could actually halt filming. So that's where they throw us in. And it's not that we're expendable, it's not like they throw us away like garbage or anything, but we're expected to be able to do stuff the average Joe can't do or won't do or wouldn't want to do. And, we kind of sell it and go, all right, for $500, I'll get smashed in the face.
But how would you get yourself mentally prepared to jump out a window or get hit by a car? Like, that's something when I do.
That's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that before. That's a great question. A lot of it is, you have some preparation time. A lot of times you have more preparation time than you want. So like you get there at 6 a.m. You get in costume, you get in makeup if that's what's necessary. And then you may sit there till 4 p.m., waiting to do your shot. And when they call you, it's like, do it right now. It's like, oh, let me warm up. It's like, no, you should be warm. That's what you're here for. So you spend a lot of the day goofing off over at the craft service truck, eating Oreos and pigging out like a fool. And then, usually you'll get maybe 5-10 minutes of prep. Or they'll say, hey, let's run this through first for camera. And you'll do 80% of the stunt. And then they'll say, okay, that's going to look right. This is where you're going to hit the ground. This is where you're going to do this or that. And for myself, it's almost like any other acting job. I get super, super scared. Well, not scared. I get really nervous. I get really amped up. The adrenaline starts going. And for me, that's the key. If I'm just got myself, where my adrenaline's pumping, I'm focused. And I know there's lots of people watching. I know there's a camera there. Can't screw up. If anything goes wrong, it's not going to be my fault, and that excitement is really what works for me, because it just gets you, you get pumped up and it's like, all right, let's do this. And I don't want to be the guy that screws up. When I get nervous, I get focused. Some people get nervous and then, they can't concentrate.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, it's kind of the reverse of that. So anytime I've had to do anything really, something very public, just another silly thing I got to do. I got to go to Europe with Michael Jackson, and there was a stunt in the show, and there's 100,000 people out there every night. And I remember the first night of the show, I get there and I'm jet lagged beyond all belief. And the show was at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. I got there at 6 p.m. and they said, "Are you going to be able to do this?" And I look outside and there's 120,000 screaming fans at Wembley. I'm like, hell yeah, let's do this. I was just completely focused. And that's what it really takes, to do a lot of this stuff. People always say, "Oh, I'm so tough." And it's like, it's not so much about toughness. Mental toughness is a big part of it. And being very, very careful, being a bit of a technician, because it's not just crashing a car. It's crashing a car right here, because that's where the camera is. And if you're a foot away, you're out of focus. If you're 6 feet away, you're not even on screen anymore. And so anything that you do, it has to be very, very precise. And that's not about being fearless. That's about being technical. That's about being, knowing what your job is really, really carefully, and making sure that whatever they ask you to do, you're, ready. You're ready to do that exactly the way they asked for. Because if you have to do it again, that's time consuming. Back then they would say that every movie cost about $10,000 per hour to make, because you got all these people and equipment and all this stuff. I'm sure it's probably 10 times that now, but you didn't want to be the person that made us go again. They say back to one, boy, you don't want to say, because the stunt man, screwed the pooch on this, so we got to go again. You want it, because that just made people feel like you weren't reliable. And you got to be reliable. You got to be able to do your stunt every time, just exactly the way they asked for it. And that's the real skill to this that goes beyond just the physicality. Plenty of able-bodied guys could do this, but can you do the rest of that? Can you not get cocky, stay humble, and do exactly what they asked, and not get, too beat up doing it because there's something we call cowboy in it, which means I don't think too much. I just do it. It's like, that's not going to last. You'll get one job and then you'll blow it. And then they'll be like, the guy was, the guy he couldn't do what he was asked to do. He was too, focused on, showing how tough he was instead of showing how professional he is. So great question.
Because I love that question because, people watch me on my show and they assume that because I do this so often, I don't get nervous. I get nervous. I am nervous before I do every single interview, which is why I need that. I call it buffer time. I need that 15, 20 minutes buffer time before every interview to breathe, relax, and because I've done interviews when I'm balls to the wall and I'm like, oh crap, I got 2 minutes jump into the interview, and I'm a nervous wreck. I'm completely off script. Yeah, I'm just out there. I need that buffer time to get myself because I am nervous every time I have an interview.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've done speeches and all sorts of other stuff, and there's times where you may have 10,000 people out there. And people said, do you get nervous? I'm like, I'll be honest, I'm more nervous in front of 5 people because 5 people will remember me. If I look out at a room with 10,000 people, I don't know you people. I still want to do well and I still want to do right, but I'm not as focused on whether that's going to really be a screw up that somebody's going to remember. I was doing a play many years ago and the lead actor just didn't show up. And it was closing night, and there's a full house. And the director turns to me and said, "Didn't you do this part when you before in college?" I said, "No, I did a scene from it in junior high." And she's like, I need you to go on tonight." And I was like, "All right, screw it, let's go." And they're like, "You'll do it?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so people who came to see the show said, "How did you prepare to do a 3-act show in a part you've never played?" And I said, well, everybody expected me to screw up. It was absolutely guaranteed that I was just going to be horrible. And so the pressure was sort of off because I'm going to do the best I can. And so I didn't know all the words to the script, but I had a script in hand. That was, they told the audience, Bill Perry's going to be on book. And so I had my script down here and just before the scene would start, give it a good look. And then, I knew the show pretty well and I would just do the best I could. And afterward, people said, that was the ballsiest thing I ever saw. And I'm like, why? And they're like, weren't you scared? I'm like, no, it's the challenge. It's the idea that everything could go wrong and everything did up to that point. And I just remember thinking how much fun it was. And then years later, I was auditioning for a movie and this director says, so you were in Of Mice and Men? And I said, yeah. And he said, who'd you play? I said, I played the part of Curly. And he said, not the night I saw it. I was like, huh? And he goes, you did that show in Whittier, right? And I'm like, oh my God, you were there? And he goes, I was there closing night. He goes, I had to bring you in for the audition because it was the gutsiest thing I ever saw. I thought everybody would leave when they said that the lead actor wasn't going to be there. There wasn't a soul. They were dragging people in off the road. Go, wait, this guy's going to screw it bad. You just know it's going to be horrible. They just thought it was going to be the worst piece of theater in the world. But as an actor, you want to be in the moment. You want to be as if you've never seen this before, as if these events have never happened. You're reacting in real time. Well, that's about as close as I could get. To really being on stage and being in the moment, because I knew the show, but I didn't know the lines, that well. And so when somebody would say something to me, I have to really listen and make sure I understood what they said because I needed to know how closely it matched what was in the book. Yeah. And then I would, deliver my line. And at the end of it, I think it was probably one of the best things I ever did, just because that's creativity, baby. You got to be on.
It's called.
And I remember being nervous before, but the minute I got out on stage, it's like, all right, we're started. I can't walk away now. Yeah. I can't just, run and go and go cry in the green room. You just had to be there. So I like that kind of a challenge. I love somebody throwing something at me that I've never done before. And then if I don't want to practice in front of people, but I do want to perform. I play a little guitar, and so people would, I want to practice. And I go, let's practice together. No, I don't want you to see me practice. I suck when I practice.
Go in.
It takes a long while to get it right.
But there's a saying that certain people succeed when the house is on fire. Like I'm one of those people. I like for the house to be on fire. You know what I mean? Like I like for people to say, he ain't gonna fucking do this. He's gonna fail. He's gonna go. I fucking love that. I do not like being the favorite in a situation. I love being the underdog.
The idea of being having to depend on your skills in the moment. I think that separates a certain, like when people say, what does it really take to be a performer? I think that's what it is. I think there's that sense of I've got absolute 100% confidence in my skills, or are very close to that. And so when somebody puts me on the spot, it's like game on, let's go. I used to do not stand-up comedy, but like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Improv comedy. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And people would say, oh my God, that's the most scary thing I can imagine. And I'm like, oh my God, it's all the fun you can have with your pants on, because you're with great, funny people, given a really fun situation, and then just go where it goes. Just jump on it. And oh my gosh, I remember doing that as probably the hardest I've ever laughed in my life, was doing that kind of stuff, because you'd come off stage going, dude, that was so killer. And then we'd laugh afterward because we couldn't laugh while we were on stage. So yeah, I like that feeling.
So that's fun. Now, so have you ever gotten on a set and they were like, we want you to do XYZ, and you're like, oh, hell's no, I'm not doing that?
They usually give you prep, it's pretty rare. I mean, if you're going to do something significant, they're going to tell you about it. On a movie called License to Drive, I had to go out the back window of a bus while it's going down the street. And there's a bunch of different things going wrong right there. You're going through glass, always a touchy situation. The bus is moving, so that's an issue. There's 3 different cameras, one shooting up, one shooting from the side, and one shooting straight on. And so there's no room to screw that up. There's too many cameras going to catch anything that you do wrong. And I had to land on another vehicle that was being towed behind us. And I remember thinking about that, going, this could really hurt. This could be bad. So I called up my friends that were stunt coordinators and stunt guys, and I said, this is what I'm doing on Tuesday. Can we get together this weekend and talk about, and maybe even work out a little bit? And stunt guys do that, as a rule. They'll kind of get together and we'll talk about different things, and we'll work on different skills, a lot of gymnastic skills, fight skills, karate stuff. You name it. We'll just practice just for the sake of that. And so I called a couple of friends, and they said, okay, here's the problem with going through glass. Here's what you want to do. Find out what kind of glass it is. Is it candy glass? Is it real glass? Because those things they're both really sharp, but real glass is isn't very brittle. And so that will go into you. Not a good thing. Candy glass is very sharp, but it's very brittle. So if you get, like, I have a scar right here from going through that window, and as I went through, it just jabbed right into a vein right there. And I hit the other vehicle. I jumped up, and they said, hey, we're going to go again, camera problem. And so I was pretty pumped at that point. My adrenaline's really pumping, and my buddy turns to me and says, hey, you got a piece of glass sticking out of you, and you're bleeding a lot. And I was like, oh, am I getting it on my outfit? And I'm trying to hold my arm out here so all the blood's dripping over here so I don't ruin wardrobe. And he's like, no, we got to fix that. And so he just happened to be an emergency medical technician, this buddy of mine that was also a stunt guy. And so he pulls the thing out, and it's, doing the whole, and he takes some crazy glue, glues it up, holds it for a second, glued shut, go back, do it again. So that was the one time where I really thought this could be too much. But the time that it's funny that time I got hurt was something that I thought was going to be a no-brainer, and it turned out to almost be a no-brainer, because I was in a clothes dryer, and they was going around in an industrial clothes dryer, like at a laundromat, and I thought no big deal. But every time that thing turned upside down, I fell, and I would whack the top of my head on one of the paddles inside the dryer. And I got a concussion. I got sick because of the spinning. It was horrible. And it was a movie nobody saw. It wasn't like an action movie. It was, just kind of a, coming of age, kids growing up kind of silliness. And I didn't killed being lit on fire. I didn't get killed, jumping out the window of a moving school bus. I didn't get killed being run over by a meat truck. All those things happened. The thing that almost killed me was a stupid clothes dryer.
Isn't that ironic, though? Isn't that ironic?
Yeah. It's funny. A few years back, I was just, I'm getting to be a old man these days, and I still try to keep myself in shape. And I go out to the front porch, and there's a big bag of cat litter, and I tried to pick it up, and I picked it up wrong, threw my back out, carried out in the stretcher, and I'm sitting in the hospital, going, of all the things that could have put me in the hospital, cat litter. Shit, that is not the way I want to go out. People, what happened to you? Oh my gosh, you're hurt. Are you okay? Yeah, I was saving a kid from a burning building. I, left out with him in my arms, and I landed on a picket fence. But I'm all right. No, I like a cat litter tried to kill me.
Now we were talking about stuntmen not getting their credit, but one genre where stuntmen get their credit, and that is horror.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, talking about horror conventions, I love going to horror conventions, but you look at the guys who are at the Nick Castle, Michael Myers, Kane Hodder, Jason.
Lee Waddell, my buddy Lee Waddell. Yeah, was
nice guy. I actually met him.
Yeah, and he and I work together still. We've been friends since we were little kids. And I do his social media for him and stuff because he's not an editor and that sort of stuff. And he does great at conventions. The lines are lengthy, and he's doing great. I mean, people are like, wait a minute, you killed Drew? And and I also killed the principal, and I also killed this person, So he and another gentleman, Alan Robinson, another good friend of mine, he was in Scream 2, and he did, he killed Jada Pinkett, and he was actually Stu Macher's double in the first one. And now when people see him at shows, it's like, holy crap, man, you're the guy. And it's like, yeah, I'm the guy, And so it's weird because we never thought about, we didn't get into, you don't go into stunts because you want to be famous, clearly. But now, Kane and all of these guys are, they're at the shows, and they do quite well. People want to meet them, and it makes you feel good. I'm doing a show in August here in LA where we've got Ira Hayden, who was the guy that I doubled in Nightmare 3, and Elvira. Jennifer Rubin's going to be there, who was, the badass girl when she, and who else? But we've got like that. Here's 4 or 5 of us going to be there, and I'm going to be up there with them, And somebody said, well, what are you going to be doing up there? I'm like, I'm going to be showing you how tough it is to be Ira, and we've all got stories, from the set that people want to talk about. And I just happened the other day, I was talking to a guy who said, have you ever seen the making of Nightmare on Elm Street 3 where they have like 15 minutes about the whole wheelchair scene? Like, there was video of that? And he sent it to me. It was on YouTube. And there I am, 25, 26 years old, and talking to Robert Englund and talking to the director, and, just showed the whole filmmaking process. And I thought, that's so cool because, again, you didn't get into it to be famous, but seeing yourself doing your work back then was something you just didn't get. So it was really, really fun to watch that. And I saw one from Return of the Living Dead 2. There was another one showing me getting hit by the meat truck. And, to just see that work done, and to see that people are like, oh my God, dude, that's so, you're the shit. You're a legend. I'm like, legend's a big word. But yeah, I appreciate that people see the work that I did and enjoy it. And I was ashamed of my horror films for the longest time because I didn't think anybody'd remember these movies. I figured, these are, they're just grinding them out. But now, 35, 40 years later, those are the films that people remember. And those are the ones that they just love with a passion that I just could never have imagined they have. And so now doing the shows, people come up to me and they're like, it's such an honor. I'm like, is it really? Yes. That makes me feel weird, but good, and so it's a blast to do those things because that recognition is there. And the promoters of these conventions are starting to notice that, and if you're signing somebody's poster, somebody brought me a Predator poster the other day, Predator 2, and there's Danny Glover's signature, and Gary Busey, and Bill Paxton, who was a great guy who passed away, a little bit ago, and all these other people. And I said, oh my gosh, thanks for showing this to me. And he's like, I'm not showing it to you. I want you to sign it. And I was like, It was such a big deal to me. It was such an honor to be, listed with those guys, And he's like, "Oh, it's not complete until we get you on there." Like, oh my God, how does that not make you feel like $1,000,000? Somebody who
That's amazing.
recognizes your work and thinks that you're every bit as important to the making of that film as any of the other, stars. It's like, that's awesome. I mean, even just thinking about it, I just, hair on my arm stands up, just thinking, wow, that was cool that somebody considers me to be that important and that they love the film that much that they're willing to come to a convention just to, have, talk to me about it and get a signature, more fun than you can, it's just too much fun.
Because I had Jason number 2, Kevin, from Part 4 on my show. But before on the show, I was talking to him. He was like, I'm thinking about doing conventions. And he goes, I don't know if I should do it. I said, you should 100% do it. He's like, I don't know who I am. And I said, but there's people out there in the horror community who are like me. And their poster is not complete unless they have every single individual who was, part of that movie. So I was like, 100%. Yeah, like, people are going to get your autograph.
It's interesting that you say that, because one of the things that I had said when an agent approached me and said, I should do this. And I knew that Lee was doing it, obviously. But as he asked me about it, he said, here's one of the things that's really cool about this. He said, if I have a Nightmare on Elm Street 3 poster and I've got Ken and I've got Ira and Jennifer and Penelope, and I've got all these people on there. And when they put that poster away, it's sort of a sad moment because it's finished. And then when somebody told him, well, Bill Perry's going to be there, William Perry's going to be there. And he's like, who's that? He's like, he was the guy that did the wheelchair sequence. They're like, oh shit, I got to have him. And they're so excited to get that poster back out. Because now that completist sort of nature that they have, they get to enjoy it again. And I can tell them things that Ira couldn't tell them or anybody else in the film. And so they come there, not just for the signature, of course, they want to meet somebody that was part of that. And so I love to have that experience and give them something that they haven't gotten before. Put that, make that poster just a little more complete and like, do you know any of the other stunt people? Who else should I be getting on my poster? Because they're excited to open up that possibility that their poster could be even better, that it could be even more memorable. And I love that. I for the longest time, I just felt like this was silliness. I don't want to charge somebody for a signature, but you got to fly a day to get there. You got to fly a day to get back. And, it is, it's work to do. It's fun work. But it's not like I'm putting a gun to anybody's head. If they don't want me to sign it, I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna, chase somebody down.
When I saw that you were in Friday 6, I was like, because my Friday 6 poster was complete. And I put it away. I was like, oh no, it's not. I don't have any.
And that's the opening sequence one where the kids in the house and Freddy's doing like Wizard of Oz with it and spinning it around, and he looks out the window, and then the house lands on Elm Street and the kid goes flying out the window from the second floor. That was the sequence. It's sort of lost in the movie a little bit because it's literally the credits are coming down the screen as I'm doing my scene. It's like, come on, people, I landed on the ground from 7 feet, no pads. Can we show that again? That hurt. That hurt a lot. But but it's like I said, it's one of those things where you look at it, you look back on it, and it's so much more fun than it was in the moment. Because in the moment it was a lot of bruises, but you look at it now, and when somebody tells you that that's like their favorite film, not just of horror films, but it's like their favorite film of all time, you feel it's very gratifying to find that they enjoyed your work that much, because you never know. And it's not like somebody walks up to you and asks you, what have you done in your life? And you go, I did Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Oh, I'm not a fan of horror films. Oh, okay. And it means nothing. But when you go to a convention, there's, 5,000 people clamoring just to talk to you for 2 minutes. I mean, that's pretty sweet.
I would talk your head off because, you're in 3 of my favorite. You're in 3 of my top 20 horror movies. So
I'm going to guess Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's everybody's favorite. Nightmare 3. And I'm gonna go long shot Monster Squad.
Actually, no.
No, okay. I have had so many people go, dude, you were in Monster Squad. And it's like, Yeah, I didn't think the movie did that well, but it's got its whole following, and
It's a cult
People Under
following.
the Stairs is the other one. I didn't know that People Under the Stairs had the following that it has. They're actually remaking it. I'm told.
Yes.
Jordan Peele at the helm of
Mhm.
that one, which would be super cool. I love him. I think he's going to bring an edge to it that I think it could have had in the first one. I know people think that's blasphemy. I'm not criticizing Wes. I'm just saying I thought it could be scarier, and he's good. So I'm looking forward to that. So is that the third one, or what's the third one?
It is. It's People on the Stairs. I love People on the Stairs.
And here we are.
And I know. It's fucking awesome.
This is part. I do full costume photo ops at some of these things, and so I've got the full costume and the mask and all that. And it's funny. It's another one of those things I never would have guessed that somebody's like, if you would just put on that costume, I swear to God, it would be like the best thing in the world. It's like, really? They're like, yeah. I mean, People Under the Stairs, It's like, okay, so I get the suit out and people are just like, oh, this is the best ever. And it's fun to give that moment to someone. For me, I'm not saying it's old hat or that I didn't appreciate it, but it's a long time ago. And so I just didn't think anybody would be that interested. And then when people are, it's fun because then I can tell them something that they wouldn't know, tell them about how Wes was, or tell them about how we made that particular part of the film. And then they watch it and they tell their friends, I talked to William Perry. He was at this con and he told me that when he came through the wall, and I, if I explain how the stunt was done, they tell their friends and they watch the movie again. And it's exciting and it's interesting all over again. And so it helps them have a deeper enjoyment of their film because they talked to the guy and they feel like, we know each other now, like we're friends. So yeah, that's why they come to the shows. And so I'm really conscious of that. So blessed to be in the spot that I'm in. I mean, oh, come on. I got to do the job I dreamt of as a kid. Nobody gets that. And so if I go to a con, I make sure that the person who comes up to me gets whatever they want, as far as anything I can tell them about that movie, anything I can do to make them feel like, whatever you need to know, I'm here for you, buddy. I'm a fan like you. We can sit and geek out on this for the rest of the afternoon if you want to, because I have just as much fun with it as they do.
I mean, wait, it's been quite a life, man. I mean, it's been quite a life. I mean, you have to be waking up every morning, like thinking stuff like, "Holy shit, I got to experience this. This is pretty."
And
awesome.
I'll tell you, even better than that. There was a time I was doing two shows at once. One of them being Return of the Living Dead, and we were doing Return of the Living Dead at night, and we were doing this other show during the day. And I remember not being able to sleep because I was so excited. I couldn't sleep. I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I mean, this is everything I dreamt of, and I was doing a zombie movie, which is awesome. You get zombie makeup and all that stuff. It's like being a kid and getting to play, at being a pirate. We did Hook. We're swinging around from 60 feet up, attacking a massive built real, no CGI, a real ship in water inside this massive soundstage, dressed up as pirates. I mean, what more do you want? How much more fun can you have? I remember looking at the guy next to me going, I'm getting paid for this shit. And he's like, I know, right? It was just, when you were 10 years old, you did all the same stuff. You just didn't have this cool set and makeup and special effects and cannons and fireworks and all the other stuff. I mean, that's just the best. So when people ask, well, was there anything bad about it? It's like, dude, I suppose, but I don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about the fun stuff, because there is 99% fun stuff. Maybe 1% of it. Yeah, here and there. There are stupid people in any job.
Yes.
You deal with them and then you move on. It's the great thing about doing a movie. I can put up with almost anything for 90 days. If this job's over in 90 days and you're going to make a shitload of money, you're like,
that is true.
I can do it.
That is 100% true. Now, if you're lawful, now if you got that 9 to 5, if you got that 9 to 5 job that you're like, oh shit, I'm retiring this 20 years. Oh, no, that's
you're just like every day you go in like, oh God, my boss is gonna bend me over a table and have his way with me again. I hate this job, but I need to pay my rent. I got a kid
and working there.
My wife and kid want to eat today. I gotta go. I gotta suffer through whatever bullshit they're gonna throw at me. And I do that stuff too. I mean, when you're in the movie business, you don't usually, at least in the beginning years, you don't make as much as you need to make a living. So you take shit jobs. because those shit jobs mean that you can get to auditions. So that shit job means that you can say, hey, look, Tuesday I'm not going to be here. And then they're not going to fire you because you told them, it's a temp job anyway. And so, yeah, you put up with a lot of that, but that's the sacrifice that makes it worth it. If anything, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly.
If it was nothing but fun, yeah, why would it pay well? It only pays well because very few people will put up with it. So yeah, it's yeah. When I look back at my life, a friend of mine that passed away some years ago, just before she passed, said, "Life isn't a matter of length; it's a matter of depth." And that really stuck with me. And I look back at my life now. I'm 60 years old now, and I look back and go, God, I had more fun than most people dream of. I've had, travel across Europe on somebody else's dime, do these movies, meet amazing movie stars who are just people that I admired, and they were heroes to me. And now they're coworkers. Like I said, if I died 10 years ago, I had more fun than most people I know. So, I'm very, very fortunate. I'm a very blessed guy, and now the convention thing is I get to sort of relive it with people who don't think I'm boring and old and stupid. Nobody says boomer. They're like Mr. Perry. I'm like, Mr. Perry's my dad here. It's like
that's why I love horror conventions, because it brings out the true fans. It brings out the true fans of horror.
And these fans are different. I mean, I've heard other people say it, but I was in Star Trek for a year, and the Star Trek fans are great too. I'm not saying anything, but the creativity that comes out of doing horror is very different. You go to a Star Trek convention, everybody's dressed like their favorite character. Cool, fun, weird, nerd out, go for it, fly it, go for it. But when you go to a horror convention, there's a guy here in the Los Angeles area who calls himself Fred Pool. And he's half Freddy Krueger, half Deadpool. And he's hilarious. And, that's his cosplay thing. And nobody looks at him like he's an idiot. Nobody looks at him like he's dumb or weird or what's that all about. Everybody enjoys it, and you can just do whatever you want. And the artwork that people bring in front of him, it's like, did you paint this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, that's just beautiful. You're an amazing artist. And they're like, can I get you to sign it? I was like, God, that's your work. That's art, man. And that's crazy good. And they're like, yeah, and it'll be better when you've signed it. Oh,
that's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And the cosplay stuff. I love that there is a place almost every weekend, someplace where you can, someplace. Yeah. I mean, you go to Pennsylvania, there's somebody.
I'm in Maryland.
Oh yeah.
I'm in Maryland. The East Coast is one every weekend.
I will see you in Maryland. Come to Fright Reads. I'm going to be at Fright Reads this year.
I will be at Fright Reads.
In fact, there's a nightmare. I probably shouldn't say this, but I think they maybe announced it. Oh. There's a People Under the Stairs reunion at Fright Reads.
Really? So is Fright Reads in Maryland this year? Or did they switch it to... Okay, sweet.
Yeah.
I'll be at Fright Reads.
That is going to be one of my... that's going to be... I mean, I hate to tell I didn't say this if any of the other shows are watching, but it's going to be one of my favorites because... I'm an author as well, and so they're going to feature my book. And then they're doing signing and all that, and we're doing a People Under the Stairs reunion. How much more fun can I have? God, bring me Charlize Theron, and the weekend is perfect.
I am going to be there. And by the way, you just brought it up. So you're an author as well. Tell us about your book.
It's funny. It's something I never dreamt of being an author. It was never my thing. I think of myself as fairly literate, but I had a nightmare, like the most horrible nightmare I've ever had in my life. And I made some notes. It was so scary, and it played out like a movie, beginning to end. And so I just scribbled down some notes. And my wife is a psychologist, and I told her about it, and she's like, I don't want to hear any more about this. That's really disturbing, fucked up stuff. I was like, okay. And I do audiobooks for a horror publisher in England. And I told him about the story. And he said, oh my God, that's freaking crazy. That's so frightening. I said, yeah. And he's like, are you going to write it? I said, no, I just kind of figured you would. And he's like, okay, give me a bit. And so after about a month, I asked, did you do anything with that? And he's like, nah, I haven't had time. And I said, let me take a swing at it. And so I wrote it, and I thought it was good. And I sent it to him, and he's like, so you want to publish this? I'm like, do you want to publish it? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, You don't have any notes? You're going to tell me I think the third act was a piece of shit, and you're like borderline illiterate? And he goes, no, I'm going to change 3 commas and we're ready to roll. And I was like, really? He goes, is this the first thing you've ever written? I said, yeah. And he's like, it's really good. I'm like, okay. And so he published it about 3 months later, and it's doing pretty well. It's on, I did the audiobook, of course, as well. And it's on Kindle and Amazon. It's the audiobook's also on Spotify and all these different places. Just because I happen to have a copy of it here. It's called By His Hand. And, if you get the Kindle book, it's $1. So if you're watching this and you think, well, $1, that could be fun. And I wrote the sequel to it because my publisher said, well, where's the follow-up? And I'm like, I don't even want to go to that place anymore, man. That's a fucked up place. Really, really hard to because a lot of people that are real people in my life get hurt very badly. And so I said, I don't like thinking about that. And he's like, you really need a follow-up. You need a follow-up, dude. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And Lee Waddell, again, we talk all the time. And he's like, you know what would be cool? And he gives me the idea. I'm like, son of a bitch. That's a great idea. All right, fine. So I sat down for a month or so and wrote that story out. And he published it on the 1 year to the day, because the story picks up 1 year to the day. So we thought that was just fun marketing. And so now I've got 2 books. And for a guy who never wanted to be a writer, I've written 2 books. How crazy is that? And it's very disturbing stuff. It's I don't want to give away anything, but it's very haunting kind of stuff. People tell me that it made them cry. There was a scene that's in there that's very, very sad. And they said, and then it just gets worse. It just gets scarier, and it just keeps building, and it just keeps getting more effed up every minute. And it's like, yeah. And one of my old coworkers said to me, so what happened? Why did he do it? And I said, what do you think? He goes, well, was he demonically possessed? Is he just batshit crazy? What's wrong? Why? And I said, what do you think? He goes, I'm not asking. I'm asking you what happened. And I said,
you're the writer.
I said, yeah, you're the writer. You know definitively, right? And I said, yeah. And he said, so what is it? I said, I'm not telling you. He said, why? I said, I don't want to screw it up. You're obviously fucked up by this, and I like that. I want you paid for this trauma. You get to suffer with it. And he's like, is the second book going to tell me more? I said, yes. He's like, is it going to tell me conclusively what happened? I said, no. But it's going to tell you, it's going to lead you halfway down this path, and then it's going to lead you halfway down this path. He's like, but it's not going to be definitive. I said, I'm sorry, man. He's like, fuck. And I'm like, I said, welcome to horror. Welcome to the realm of horror. And I feel like it's original, which I think is really lacking out there right now. I don't want to see another 80s rehash, So when my favorite review of the book that somebody said was that I thought I knew where this was going, and then I didn't. And it has kind of like a Stephen King vibe to it. And just to hear my name mentioned in the same sentence, as Stephen King is, I'm a huge Stephen King reader and fan. So that was just like, oh, you couldn't compare me to anybody else better, or say that I had some, similarity in some small way to somebody that good. But it's fun, and I'm working on getting it into a graphic novel right now. I've got a few different.
That should be fun.
Yeah, because it really plays well as a graphic novel, because there's what this person is thinking, and then there's what they're doing, and it's 2 totally different things. And so a comic book gives you that ability to say one thing but mean another.
Yeah.
So in fact, I've got a group or an account on Facebook called By His Hand, the graphic novel, and I'm hoping to crowdfund it so that I'm not putting all the money out on my own. But it's I'm really excited about it. It's so much fun. It's just, again, one of those things where I never meant to be a writer, but here I am with 2 books, maybe a graphic novel, and then there's a screenplay as well that I wrote to accompany it, because a friend of mine asked me. He said, hey, I pitch stuff. This book screwed me up. Would you be willing to would you let me pitch it to a movie guy? I'm like, gosh, why would I want that? Movies, I have no interest. Obviously, that would be the best thing in the whole world.
Fucking amazing, huh?
Yeah, People say, "Gosh, you're so lucky." It's like, well, I'm lucky, but I'm working hard. This isn't easy stuff.
That's the point.
It's fun stuff, but it's not always easy. So,
Exactly.
yeah, very
Now,
busy.
and I'm going to be at Freight Rates now. That you're here because I'm going to get both copies. And reason I'm going to wait too because I like to have my books autographed, so I like to get them autographed.
What I do with people usually is I'll say, hey, if you like the book after you've read it, if you're a paper, hold a paper book in your hand kind of person, listen to the audiobook after if you want to. And I usually, if somebody buys the book, it's like, here, I'll send you the audio file. It's only an hour. It's what's called a novelette, so it's a very quick read. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I tell people it's all the trauma you can have for $7 if you get the paper book. It's like I hope afterward that you're like, dude, what the is wrong with you? It's like that's my favorite thing to know I hurt somebody somehow.
see, but I like that a little bit, so I'm definitely looking forward to it.
The horror crowd does. The horror crowd really does love that. When people write to me about it, they're like, you went someplace I haven't taken myself before. And that's what, writing or acting or art or any of this stuff, that's what it's about. It's giving them an experience they couldn't have any other way, that was out of their norm, out of their normal life. And maybe it's shocking, maybe it's funny, maybe it's whatever, but scary is a very different vibe. Wes Craven said something to me one time about if you were in a movie theater and you had your back to the screen and there was a horror movie going on in one theater and a scary movie, a horror movie and a funny movie going on in the next, it would be very hard to tell which movie was playing, because a good scare makes you laugh afterward. Because there's this tension. It's like, oh my God, that was so, and there's that, your heart's pounding. And you're like, oh my God, that was so screwed up. Yeah. But there's that laugh afterward. And that laugh or that release of all that tension is a good thing for you. You get to survive through the final girl or whoever it is that's surviving. And you get to experience that without actually having to be in real danger, and
thank God.
And yes, and it's funny because it's funny that someone can still scare the shit out of you, and all the stuff that scares you as a little kid still scares you as an adult, but you learn to deal with it. And a movie puts you in a situation where you can no longer deal with it rationally because you're watching it right there on screen, and that is a great explanation for why, when people say, oh, those movies, I don't like them, and that's fine. Don't like them. I don't care. But if you say, I think people who like them are freaky, there's something wrong with those people. I don't agree with that. I think some people need that release of tension because maybe their lives aren't as fun and, easy as mine. So if they watch a movie and they're like, oh my God, that movie was so intense. And then in the end, and it's like, yeah, in the end, you get to let it all go,
It gives you it gives you a way to escape. It gives you the chance to escape from life sometimes, because life is not always fun. It's not always exciting. It's not. Most people's lives are not exciting. Most people's lives are just okay. Yeah. So it's something exciting for
and it's different and it's fantasy. I mean, I think anybody that's really into Star Wars or anybody that's into any of the other really like major fandoms, the Star Treks, whatever, these movies touch them in a way that nothing else does. And I'm not here to judge that. If you like horror movies, enjoy. Fly that freak flag, put it way up in the air and wave it, and go to a convention where there's 25,000 people who do the same thing. And you find your tribe, eventually in life, whether it's sports is your thing or movies is your thing, or horror movies in particular, or science fiction or books or whatever, find your tribe and enjoy it with them, because life's freaking short, man. And if you're going to sit there and feel awkward about, oh, I'm weirdo because everybody thinks I'm a weirdo because I like horror films, go to a convention. You'll find that you're not even the weirdest one there.
Right in.
You look at yourself and go, that dude's a freak. I feel good about myself. That dude's fucked up.
Because that's what I mean. The first time before I went to horror, I was like, because I'm big into horror, I was like, oh, I think I might be the weirdest person out there or the weirdest horror fan out there, right? And then I started going to horror convention. I was like, nah, I'm pretty normal. I mean, I'm on the normal side of weird, because like, I mean, I would say I'm not that big of a horror fan. I didn't say before. I always thought I was the biggest horror fan until I started going to horror conventions, and I'm like, well, I don't think I'm that big of a horror fan.
Yeah, and and there's subgenres. Just like being a music. Somebody says, "Oh, I like rock and roll." It's like, you mean like classic rock? Do you mean new wave? Do you mean this? So there are people that are like the Saw faction and the Terrifiers, and then there are the people that more Alien, or Nightmare on Elm Street, or some people like the supernatural stuff. And there's some of those genres that don't really appeal to me. That's okay. Nobody's judging me based on what I like or don't like. And that to me is why the conventions and all these things are so much fun. Is, you can enjoy what you enjoy without being judged, because you've got other people who enjoy it as much or, as you do. And you can sit and hang with those people, and you can talk about your favorite movies. You can go watch them in one of the theaters or something like that, and really just enjoy it without any, without feeling weird about it. Or, I used to watch horror movies when I was a kid. The old school Hammer, Dracula movies, and Frankenstein, and the silly Japanese, Godzilla movies were some of my favorite as a kid. And my mom's like, "Why are you watching this garbage?" I'm like, "Why do you eat potato chips? They're not good for you. You eat them because you enjoy them. Just let me have this. Don't make me feel bad about this."
But don't you think
I'm going to use that analogy a lot now? That's a good one.
That's a good one. But don't you think now, though? I mean, year 2024 when it comes. I go to a lot of horror conventions all throughout the country. But have you gotten a sense over the last couple of years that they are trying to make horror conventions more mainstream and not put it necessarily on the hardcore fan? It's almost like they're gentrifying horror conventions.
That's a good point, because I've seen a lot of. Well, it's funny. I almost look at it the other way, where if you're a Galaxy Con, you're like, we can't get by just on science fiction. Can we get some horror guys to get more people in here? I think people are pulling in the horror people because they're popular. I hate to say it, they make a lot of money. That's one of the reasons they bring them. They attract a lot of new fans that might not go to a science fiction convention or a comic book convention. Like a Fright Reads, the one we were talking about earlier. Fright Reads is primarily an author's thing, but they bring in horror horror movie guests, because it just kind of gives it adds another dimension. It adds something new to it, and I don't have a problem with that. I do see what you mean about the sort of like to feel like the horror crowd is its own thing. It's like if you're a metal fan, if you're like a death metal bands and stuff like that, you don't want anybody coming in saying, "Oh yeah, my grandpa's a death metal fan. He really loves." It's like, please, don't ruin this for me by telling me that some old geezer is now in the mosh pit with me. Please don't do that to me. I want to keep my love of this pure. And when you go to a horror convention, like the art people I've talked about, the crafts people, the sculptors, the makeup artists, and all that stuff, they don't mix well. It's an oil and water thing. You can't just bring them into a Comic Con and go, "Yeah, these guys will get along." It's like, people. There is a crossover of comic people who love horror comics, and there are people who love horror movies that may love comics as well. But I think if you say, "Well, let's add the Star Trek to the Terrifier," it's not a good mix. It's not a good mix. You're gonna dilute both.
Yeah, because I've started seeing that more and more. Where I start seeing like the Backstreet Boys or New Kids on the Block at a horror convention, and I'm like, I mean, I get it. I get it that you're trying to reach out to other audiences. It's all about money at the end of the day.
Yeah,
you're trying to reach out to other audience and get more tickets sold, and by bringing in
different celebrities
or different celebrities that are outside of horror will bring a different audience in, which equals more money. But at the same time,
they're mixing horror and horrible.
Yes, exactly. 100%. That was a good one. I like that.
Yeah, bring in Justin Bieber. I can't imagine anything more frightening than that guy.
Yeah. because I mean, I used to go to hardcore conventions, right? And I'll have pictures, and I would get one or two response on social media. People would say, "I did not even know that was a thing. Like, where was that? There's horror conventions?" Or I would get where I would have a picture with Bill Moseley, and people are like, "Well, who's that? Whoever your picture with?"
Yeah,
Because the average person doesn't know who Bill Moseley is. You know, that's
yeah,
hardcore horror fans,
and that's
and
okay.
like,
It should be okay. I
yeah,
mean, like I was saying earlier, there's a convention pretty much every weekend. Um,
it really is.
I mean, some of these guys I know, like the Matt Lillards and the Nev Campbells and stuff, they can make more doing conventions than they can do making movies. I mean,
Probably so.
no
Yeah,
doubt about it.
yeah,
And that's cool. I mean, I think it's neat that they can go out and they can, meet fans, and, there's literally hundreds of people waiting. So they're obviously there, for that. Um, and that's cool. I like that part of it. It's fun to have an event like that. Like I said, you get to meet your tribe, but yeah, there becomes a saturation point where it's like, really, can we do another event in this town? I mean, because even if it's not a convention, there's pop-ups and there's this and there's this and there's this, and the fun part of that, I mean, there's good and bad to it. The good part is I've gone to some, like 3 different shows in Ohio.
excuse me.
I'm I've got another show, Ohio Terracon in I think it's August. We're doing the show there, and I've been to. This will be my 3rd time in Ohio, and I said, "Does anybody in Ohio? Haven't I met everyone in Ohio?"
Yeah,
And I have, but the thing is, some people come out more than once. Some people are like, "Oh yeah, I go to that one, and I go to this one, and I go to this, and then there's a pop up next weekend." And I'm like, "Do you go every week?" And they're like, pretty much. I love to get my cosplay on and then go to a convention. I go every weekend because this is just my thing. It's like, okay, I appreciate that this is a major passion for them, and they go to horror bars out here in Montclair. They actually have a horror beauty salon right next to a horror restaurant. And there's like
really.
this whole spooky part of town, but it's spooky, not spooky like like unsafe, but it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, they just have this whole. There's a coffee shop there called Roast the Dead, right next to Little Shop of Hairdos. So
Oh,
there's all this stuff, and there's vendors there too. There's a Grim Girl. Has a store, and this is all within maybe 5 or 6 blocks of each other. And there's a
nice.
horror bookstore and all that. And so people go to these things and they really enjoy it. And that's cool. The exploitation of that is a mixed bag to me. Obviously, you'd have to have events in order for these vendors to vend. So we need vendors.
Mm-hmm.
We love the vendors. We love their artwork. We love their crafts. We love the stuff. So that's cool. But then when you do a convention and there's 15,000 people there and the lines are long and it's like it's too crowded. It seems like somebody's just, raking in the money and not worrying about whether it's a decent experience. So like I said, there's some greatness to it and there's some not so great stuff. I think eventually, like any other business, it'll work itself out. The shitty shows will fail. The good shows, the people who understand, hey, limit ticket prices so people can still, like I met a gal who went to a show, and I won't name it because I want to do that show. But she wanted to go see somebody, and the lines were so bad that the fire marshal came and said, "Hey, you got to change this." And the lines, she couldn't even get into the room where the people were that she wanted to get signed.
I know which
So
one
that
you're
that
talking
was
about.
hard.
I know exactly which one you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. But like, yeah, it's getting to the point. Like, I go to 10 different horror conventions throughout the country. The goal is to go to every single one for the show. But I've gotten to the point where there's certain horror conventions I've never been to that I want to go to. I won't go to because I see, I'm part of the groups. I see the pictures. I see the lines. I see the chaos. And I'm
like, I don't want chaos either. And neither do the guests. Yeah. I mean, really. I'm doing a really small show called the Deep South Paracomic Con down in Ozark, Alabama. And it's very small. They do it for charity. There's not a lot of guests. that are, strictly movie. They do a lot of paranormal guests and that sort of stuff. And it's fun because it is small. It's fun because it is a neighborhood show. I'm so stoked to go there because these are like the true fans that don't necessarily get the big guests, at a small time, and I don't want to say small time, but a smaller show, a little deeper into the South than other people might go. And so I recognize the people showing up for this are going to be so excited to be there because they just don't get this that often. And so I like that. I like going. I mean, I would love to do some of the bigger shows too, just because there's a bit of, just big excitement at some of those.
Yeah.
But smaller events are fun too. And I think I've seen that, who Felissa Rose is most likely. Yeah. Felissa does a lot of new stuff. She's putting together her own events, just so that it isn't 10,000 people. So it's 500 people, 200 people who are real deep fans who really want this particular thing. So I like that idea. And I think that's coming out more. There's more of that, not because it's a money grab, but because we're trying to create a unique experience that isn't, Woodstock, where you can hardly hear, you can hardly see, you can't get in, you're 2 miles away and there's a speck over there, which is supposed to be the guest.
Yep.
Nobody wants that because it's not good for us as the guest, because, you don't want to feel like you're just filing people through and that you don't have time to chat and say hello. Part of one of the things I do, I always try to have a volunteer. And I said, do me a favor, get like a little Post-it note like this, ask them before they get to me what they want on their poster, what they want signed. And it's not to make things more efficient. It's to give me more time to talk to them, because this is kind of the absolute must do. And it's not that interesting. Whereas if by the time they get to me, I just look at the Post-it note and I say, what's your name? Where are you from? Which of the movies I've done are fun, are your favorite or fun for you, or what's your least favorite horror movie, whatever the conversation is going to be. I want to have time for that conversation, and so I try to make sure that I've arranged everything so that the conversation we have isn't hollow. It isn't the same thing I said to the last guy. It's something new and it's something fresh and it's something different that they couldn't get any other way. Otherwise, it's just getting a signature. Go on eBay and do that, because that's what they should do. Because if the person's not fun, why spend $50 to get into the convention, and then, pay somebody $50 to have a conversation that they
stay in the line for 2 hours. Yeah.
I mean, one of the advantages, one of the advantages of being a lesser known, I charge a lot less than most of these folks. I know some of these guys are charging $40 for a picture and $40 for a signature and $40 for a full costume photo op. It's like, oh my God, you're $160, $120, and they didn't even get to meet you. That seems like a lot, and depending on where you're going, some parts of the country are, financially different. I mean, here in LA, we're paying, $5 a gallon for gas, and in Ohio, they're paying half of that. And I recognize that those people don't make LA wages, and so I'm not going to charge LA fees. It's just you got to go where the market goes and be, cognizant of the fact that this is for some of these people, this is a big treat.
It is.
One of the fun things that Lee does, he has comic books that are Ghostface comic books. They're very cute. There's not a lot of, stabbing and blood or anything. And he knows that people bring their families, and he wants them to bring the family, and he wants them to be able to make sure that the little kid has fun too. So he gives them coloring books and takes pictures with them for free, and make sure that they really get something out of all this, because otherwise it is too much. It is too much to wait. I mean, I saw Matt Lillard go out at CreepyCon and high five everyone that was waiting in line, every single one. Wow. He made a point. He was giving hugs. He was doing selfies because he knew people were waiting over 2 hours to meet him, and he recognizes that that's a real, big deal.
It's a bummer.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, because they paid for the whole day, but they're going to spend half of it in line. So I think when people do make that effort, when they do try to make sure that show is worth doing, and the shows that don't do that, the shows that get too focused on how much money they're making, the vendors will dry up, the fans will certainly dry up, and
because the vendors
won't want to do the show.
Yeah, because the vendors are the ones who are bringing in the money. I mean, they get started. So if you start, if I can explain this marketing wise, but if you start bringing too many big guests with long ass lines, that's less time people are going to spend at the vendors.
Yeah.
Those guests, Kiefer Sutherland or someone like that, are charging $300. Most horror convention horror fans are not making six figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
So like now they done spent $300 on Kiefer Sutherland's picture and autograph. That means that they're not going to spend any money over at vendors.
Or little guys like Bill Perry.
Yeah, I mean,
no, I know what you mean. And I think, I hope the market will balance out over time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, we're Americans. We're all about, competition and all the rest. I think that after a while, if people inflate their prices like that, if people do that, they'll just won't, they won't get, they'll get the collectors, they'll get the big dollar collectors, but they won't get the real fans. And that's who these things are supposed to be for. You were talking about vendors. One of the things I try to do, when I was doing a show in Ohio last year, I started partnering with vendors. I said, hey, tell me what you want to sell. Let me do a video about it. And they're like, why? I'm like, because I want people to come by your booth. And like, really? It's like, yeah. Because without the vendors, I'm not there. If there's the vendors pay the promoters, fees essentially. Mm-hmm. The promoters pay, maybe a little bit to me. They pay for my travel, that sort of stuff. Hopefully, I sell enough signatures that I, don't have to be paid by them. But it's a group effort. If I can make the vendors money, then the vendors will say, "You got to go see Bill Perry. He's the coolest guy here." And then of course that makes the promoter happy. Bill's happy, promoters happy, vendors happy, guests are happy. We're all in a good spot. It's not something that can be done for free. I get it, but you shouldn't be bending people over like that. I've seen a few guests, people I've worked with in the past on movies who are just not good guests. They're doing this. What? Hang on a second. I'm finishing the Wordle. It's like, come on, dude. That guy waited in line for you.
Yep.
Be excited, be friendly, and they don't, those guys don't last because boy, word gets around that you're a sucky guest. Woo!
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be you.
It does.
And it happens, so I see that. And I hope that there is a saturation point. I've been asked to do some weekend little pop-ups and I've done them here and there if they were close by and I knew the promoter and he was a buddy and he needed a guest that was going to draw some people in. I don't mind doing that. I'm not, I do fine all on my own. I don't, necessarily, I'm not making my living off of conventions and I don't expect I ever will. I do them because it's fun and, I make a few bucks to pay for the weekend that I'm away. My wife loves it because she gets rid of me for like 4 days at a time. Awesome. Everybody wins, but that's the joy of it to me. And if it's not fun for you, don't do them. If you're an actor and you think, ugh, I'm just I'm such a sellout. I don't want to go to some loser convention. It's like you have the wrong attitude, dude. Get the F out of here because you're gonna ruin it for everyone. You are really gonna ruin it. Somebody has one bad experience, and that's the one they remember. Sadly, they'll remember the shitty one better than the best one.
But thank God, I've only had 3 bad experiences with famous horror people at conventions, only 3 times, but yeah, everybody else has been amazing, nice, But it feel like, but one of the 3 was really disappointing because it was someone I really was excited to see,
and I don't go all fangirl very often, but every now and then I've met someone at one of these things where I'm like, holy shit, that's I got to work with Tim Curry many years ago on Home Alone 2, and seeing him, this is freaking Frankenfurter right there, and I'm not just meeting him; we're working together. And so it was such a big deal. And then he was at a convention I saw, and they had sold out 3 days in advance. 3 full days in advance for every picture, for every moment. And, they push people through pretty quickly. And I wanted to go say hi to him and just see if he remembered me or whatever. But it was like, I was completely fangirled out. And he's a lovely guy. He's been, I guess he had a stroke, and so he's in a wheelchair. And but he loves the fans, and he's, even with his limited capacity to really spend time with people because it's all photo ops, he's a good guy. And he really appreciates the people that are there. Even in the condition he's in, he makes every effort to be as lovely as a man as he is. So I think there's something to be said for the people that are doing this. Obviously I'm sure he makes plenty of money, or his agent does. He's there though because he wants to be. He doesn't have to. The man's plenty rich.
Yeah.
So if he's there, he's doing it for the right reasons. I think.
Which is absolutely great. Now, William, where can everyone find you, my friend?
Probably the best place, my favorite place to see people is on Instagram. I'm Webs Craven. So WEB, like website, then an S, and then Craven, as in Wes Craven, because I was his web developer at one point. And so I called myself Webs Craven. And then I'm also on the thing, if anybody's interested in being part of a comic book, or the graphic novel, I guess you should call it, on Facebook, it's By His Hand GN. By His Hand graphic novel. Yeah. So, and those are places, like I say, I'm having people kind of vote for the artwork that they like. As artwork comes in, I'll say, hey, what's your favorite style? What do you think of this? And I want to give people that are fans of the book or fans of horror in general the option to be a part of it, not just financially. They can help make some decisions for me, because I look at it and go, I love both of these. I don't know what to do. And so I let fans vote on that, which is fun. And there's also, I think the same name is also on Instagram. And then I have a website, WilliamRPerryStunts.com. And that's just where I just talk about anything. If you wanted to read stories about different movies and fun little stuff, there's stuff there. I don't post as much to there because everybody goes to Facebook or Instagram anyway. I'm not a Twitter fan, so I don't do that one, but Facebook, Instagram are my people. And and when you write there, you are writing to me. It's not like I'm so big I have some secretary handling this stuff. So people will ask questions and stuff, and they're like, oh, how do you know this? I'm like, because I'm William Perry. Well, how else would I know this? Like, you answer your own mail? I'm like, wow, do you think I live a different life? I don't mow my lawn because I'm not good at it, not because I'm so wealthy. And if I try to post what shows I'm going to be at. My fall is looking really good. I'll be in Maryland at Fright Reads. I'll be in Ohio at Ohio TerraCon. I'll be Deep South Deep South Paracomic-Con, and what else? There's something else in that mix. And then there's going to be this show here in LA, the Night of Nightmares, which I'm really looking forward to. It's just all about Nightmare 3.
Sounds fun.
And I think if people like Nightmare on Elm Street, they love the first one and they love number 3 almost as much. And so to be a part of that one, that's that one where I just when people say, you were in Nightmare 3, it's like, yeah, it's my favorite too. It's just what it is, great special effects, good story, all good stuff. And so that's pretty much the stuff I got going on. And like I said, we'll see if By His Hand ever makes it to the big screen, but we'll see what happens with the graphic novel first.
William, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Oh, for me too. You ask such great questions. I feel like I've done a handful of podcasts, and I always feel like, please don't ask me the same question because I've only got one answer. So when somebody asks me a new question, it's like, oh, thank God, I can talk about something else. My wife and kids are so tired of my stories because I have a terrible thing about I'm at my age. I repeat myself. And they're like, oh my God, you've told the story 5,000 times. Please don't tell it again.
I did the same thing. Sorry, people always say, you have great questions. You must have a great list. I don't write nothing down, no script. It was literally, I just have your name and that's it. That's what I roll with.
Well, you did your research, which, research, which is good. And that's because that just prepares you so you know what we're going to talk about. But yeah, I think it's good to let it take you where it takes you, because it does. If I have to answer the question, have you ever been, what's the worst you've ever been hurt? Or, it's like, again, I can't answer that question 5 different ways. And so if I'm asked it by 5 different people, they're like, well, that's the same thing he told me. Well, it's the same answer. I can't, exactly. I can only, unless I'm making shit up, which I suppose I could do, but it's not as genuine and it's a little harder to make it sound real. But yeah, it's good to have somebody ask stuff, and that's why the conventions are so much fun too, because people will come up and go, "When you did that, did you?" And it's like, God, that's a very deep question. I'm so glad you asked, because now I have an answer, and I can tell you something that you would have never heard from anybody else. And then that's the fun for both of us, because I'm not just, a talking tape recorder here. I'm a human being that is answering real questions because it's neat and it's fun, and you ask something new. Thank you.
And
So it's been a blast. I love it. When will people be seeing all this?
Well, today is Wednesday, so it'll be up Wednesday. So yes, so it'll be up Wednesday. And then I'm gonna. And by the way, I'm going to Frank Reason because listen. The fact you told me is people on the stairs reunion. Didn't fucking know that, so I'm going to be there. Also come over and say hi to you as well, and grab a copy of your book.
Yes, yeah. I said, well, you come by. You've been so nice to let me even talk about them on here. Come by, we'll get them signed for you, and we won't tell anybody that they're free.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, my friend. I say, if you ever want to do this again, this is fun. You're a great host. I love it.
You're more than welcome to come back on anytime, man. Listen, more than welcome to come back on anytime.
And thanks for you. Those of you watching this thing, I know we've been going on for a while. If you're watching, thank you for watching, and smash that or stab that subscribe button, damn you.
Yes.
Yes. Slash that mofo.
Yes. If you got any questions too, put them in the comments and I can shoot it to William and he'll answer the question for you.
Absolutely, yeah. And I said, if it's something I didn't cover, if I sparked a question in you, Mr. Listener, go to at Webb's Craven, ask the question there. I love answering questions, and it gives me something interesting to post, because otherwise it's just all posting about conventions, and that gets old pretty quick.
Yes. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and he is William Perry. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.